Hello YouTube, and welcome to the Hypertrophy Log number 5. Today I'm going to be taking you through one of my arm day in a live commentary style, where I'll be using certain movements that you've most likely never seen before, and that I believe to be extremely effective for muscle growth. I'm also going to give you some advice on how to program and run an arm day, because I think it's extremely effective and important for lifters, so as to make sure that you don't end up with an imbalance and you actually get massive biceps, massive triceps, and everything that comes with it. Now, some of you might have noticed that this arm day is taking place in the old gym. I since moved to a new place and I have a brand new place where I train, and that will be included at the end of the video. I'm going to give you a gym tour. But for this session, we are back in the garage, and it was in summer, it was extremely hot. So that day in particular begins with a movement for the arms, a very heavy movement. And since I have a very strong point in the bicep department, and I want to develop my brachialis and brachioradialis in particular, I use a specific type of curl that biases that portion of the arm. It's not necessary to do that if you're a beginner because you just need overall mass, but the more advanced you become, the more specific you become, even within the realm of bodybuilding, and you start to skew certain movements and certain muscles so as to balance your physique and have a better flow. So that movement that I'm using here, I call the hangman curl. It's a random name I gave it because you pull on a rope, and it's extremely simple. You're going to loop a rope around plates and you're going to do your curls in that fashion with your arms and your wrists in particular pronated. So you're not supinated at all. And the goal is, of course, to blow up these forearms. Now, what I love about this movement is that it's extremely easy to grind. You can really push and your form doesn't suffer that much. It is essential in that movement that the shoulders remain stationary. I see many lifters who, when they do it, they shrug the shoulders up. You are no longer doing an isolation if you do that. You're doing an upright row, which is great for shoulders and traps, but this is not the point. So keep these shoulders stacked, do not move them. What moves is the hand. And the great thing about this movement too is that even if you don't go to a gym, it's extremely easy to just procure yourself a rope and use plates to do your movement like this. I personally find that the cable version is superior because you can pull diagonally, so you don't actually have the weight underneath you, it's slightly in front of you, and I find that this gives a better stretch. But the plate version, if it's all you can do, is also extremely good. Now, I superset that with dips. My goal with dips was to build up shoulder mobility and resilience so as to be able to do them weighted. And lo and behold, I'm now doing them weighted with 90 pounds for sets of 5. So all of my work paid off, but it did take me a very long time to be able to do 15 to 20 bodyweight dips. Here I'm doing them adding a pause at the bottom and not going even close to failure because it was just a way for me to get some chest work and some tricep work without actually taxing the elbow too much. In this footage, I was still dealing with a ton of elbow tendonitis, so I was going very easy on it, and it worked beautifully because now I have zero tendonitis. After this, we follow the forearm brachialis movement and the dips by something for the chest. And since my chest is a very strong point, here I was just using something to get some stretch and blood in the area. So I just used a spree. It's a type of band. I tie it to the rack and I just do my flies in that fashion. The good thing here is that I can go extra deep with the range of motion. With weights or with cables, it might be difficult, but since the bands accommodate the resistance, you are actually at the easiest part of the movement when the arms are behind the body. That is also not a quote-unquote mass building movement. It's just a way for me to get some work for the area. As you know, I do all of my training using supersets or giant sets. In this case, it's a giant set. But the thing with giant sets is that you cannot have 3 to 4 movements that are extremely taxing in a row. You need to balance it out. So first movement was extremely taxing for the arms, the biceps and the forearms. Then movement 2 and 3 were slightly easier, with movement number 2 still being a compound movement, which means logically that the fourth movement should be extremely heavy and intense as well, and it is. So my last movement for that giant set is a movement for the back, the lats and traps in particular, and it's a belt machine row. Now, Me showing you this exercise is a dick move because you most likely do not have that machine available. And I say it's a dick move because I find it absolutely incredible for the back, especially the lower lat portion. I've never felt a row that hits that area that well. And it really is also extremely safe, easy to set up. You just put yourself on top of the machine, strap up, of course, it's a back exercise, don't let your grip limit yourself. And then you can really row into the side of the body, into the hips almost. And with a nice pause at the bottom, the stretch is immense. It is extremely easy to go to failure and to really feel like the entirety of your upper back is being challenged without the lower back being a limiting factor, because as you can see, I'm literally posted on the machine. My lower back is not doing anything. And you can get away with using very little weight because the machine itself and the leverage is extremely awkward. So if I remember properly, I think here I was only using 70 pounds, which is not that much for a row, but it's 70 pounds of plates. The machine itself is extremely heavy, plus the leverage. So for this movement, I do a 6 to 10 because I really want every rep to be very intense, and I want to really push myself to the point that actually at some point I grunted weird, and my wife, who is very generously filming this, thought I hurt myself. And no, it was just that this is truly a high intensity movement for the upper back. So if you're one of the lucky ones that has a belt squat machine in your gym, hey, please do that movement. Try that movement. You're going to absolutely love it. Really make sure you insist on the stretch at the bottom with a slight pause if needed. You are going to blow the fuck up from it. And that was that for the first giant set. So as you see, nice, short, and sweet. I did 3 sets, I believe, on that day, not quite sure. 2 heavy exercises that are going to work key muscles, the bicep, the forearms, and the upper back that I want to blow the fuck up. And 2 movements for the triceps and the chest that are just giving me some work, some blood in the area, but that don't tax me that much. Then we move on to the next giant set that starts with a bicep exercise. Why? Because the first one started with a movement that takes the bicep out of the equation because of the pronation of the wrist. So I also want something to isolate the bicep in particular. And here I picked a dumbbell curl on the preacher station. But as you can see, I lean forward on each rep, and I do that to get a better stretch. I recommend you attempt this technique. Do not use that technique to lift more weight than you should. You should still be able to comfortably rep the weight, at least 8 to 12 reps. This is a method I actually learned from Erzoviak, and it really allows you to get into that range of motion where the bicep is fully stretched while not, in a sense, losing your position. Because as you can see, the shoulder moves forward with it. So for anyone who is afraid of a possible rupture of the bicep tendon, by doing that, you reduce the possibility. I would still say that anyone who is a novice needs to stay away from that form and from that technique entirely. Stick to proper form, stick to maybe, if it is something that you desire, getting that extra range of motion before you attempt partials in that fashion with body English. But as someone who is very advanced in bicep development, I can say that when it comes to single arm preacher curls, I will always prefer that technique because it allows me to overload the muscle. And you can see that you can really grind like a madman on this particular movement. You don't die at the end of the range of motion like it would happen if I just extended the arm fully. And after this, we are going to do some ab isolation. I've been preaching ab work for years now, and what I preach, I apply. I never share stuff with you that I don't do in my training. So you do an arm day, it's a good opportunity to do some ab work. Pick an exercise that you really like for the abs. Here I'm doing some twists. So these are sit-ups with a twist to target the obliques and the serratus muscles a tiny bit more. As you can see, full range of motion and slow tempo. You do not want to rebound on movements for the abs. You want the abs to have to stretch and catch the weight. That is how they are going to grow. You can, of course, use weight by simply holding a plate, a kettlebell, or whatever behind your head. But you'll find that if you do this exercise properly, it's already very hard with a slow tempo and with body weight. You can literally see my upper body getting gorged in blood and getting all red from all of the exertion of doing that exercise the proper way. Now, at this point, some of you might wonder why I call this an arm day, since I did abs and I did some chest and even some back work on it, right? Shouldn't we just stick to doing bicep isolation and tricep isolation? Well, that is a big mistake in my opinion. Something I see many people do where they think, oh, an arm day should just be as much arm work as possible, even if it means doing junk volume. I personally disagree. To me, what defines an arm day is, of course, a day that is going to focus more on developing the limbs, but also a day that should be, in a sense, like a rest day. Your arm day should not be stressful. It should have a minimum of stressful exercises, but it's not an excuse to not train parts like the back. The back needs to be trained a lot. So what do you do if you have, like me, an upper, lower, and arm? Where are you supposed to train your back? Well, the answer is whenever you can. And to me, that's every single day. So on lower day, I'm going to train stuff like my lower back, like my rhomboids, like my yoke. On upper days, I'm going to train stuff like the lats. And on the arm days, I'm going to also train the lats because why not? Train it whenever you can. The upper back has infinite potential. Mine is pretty big. There are other people within the community who have bigger upper backs, and I can tell you that we can all still progress. We can still get a lot of mass on. Now we're going to move on to a long head exercise, which is a dumbbell skull crusher. And I do mine a bit differently. So as you see, my elbows are not pointed towards the ceiling. They're pointed behind my head because I find I feel a much better stretch in that fashion simply. And I do mine with a pause at the bottom to get even more stretch, and then I explode up. That movement used to give me pretty bad elbow pain. I've still moved away from it. Now it feels much better. I used, and I think in that footage I still do it, to try and stand up with the dumbbell at the end. I don't recommend it. I recommend just dumping it behind your head because that way you can truly go to failure. Here I had like 2 reps in reserve. I've since modified my technique, but it might be something you're still doing. So unless your gym is a fucking library, just dump them on the floor. They're going to fall like 6 inches. It's not going to damage the floor or the dumbbells, and that way you can really push the set. When you train in isolation, when you train muscles in isolation, push it to failure. There is no reason not to. And then we wrap up that giant set and the day with a simple rehab, prehab movement that I do for shoulder health, shoulder mobility, and upper back mobility as well. Some people might call these modified snow angels. They are extremely gruesome to do, especially at the end of the set, but it really, really helps if you have shoulder issues. If you have knots in your upper back, to get the upper back moving in that fashion is great. We tend as bodybuilders to overload the back with all these vertical and horizontal patterns, but we rarely allow it to move through a full range of motion like this with minimal weight. So it is absolutely free to do movements like this, very cost effective, is not going to impair your recovery, which is why I also love giant sets so much, because now it is very easy to include stuff for the abs, stuff for the upper back, stuff for the shoulders like this, which down the line will make you bulletproof and allows to push really hard on the movements that will make you bigger. Keep in mind that you cannot keep growing if you get injured. You cannot keep growing if you are in pain all the time. So health and size come together. They come hand in hand. And we wrap up this arm day with a bit of a physique check. So I'm 215-ish in this footage, if I remember correctly. As you can see, the shoulders have grown. They've started to catch up. They are still lacking, but they are much better than they used to be. The chest is as dominant as ever. The traps are huge. The biceps are huge. The long head is starting to round, which I really like. The forearms are good too, but I will always try to get them bigger, of course. And my focus on the arms is, as I said, the brachioradialis in particular. The abs are great. I want more obliques because I want to go for that Farnese Hercules look. But overall, I'm of course extremely proud of my physique. with always in mind the desire to keep growing. I absolutely believe that even at 6 feet, 215 as an advanced lifter, I can keep growing. There's no such thing as a natural limit. This is literally just the beginning. And now that the training portion of the video is over, we can move on to the gym tour. So now my gym is in a basement, meaning that all movements overhead are just dead because I literally cannot lift my arms. I touch the ceiling. So I had to modify my planning, and now I do a lot of movements in a commercial gym. I do half of it at home and half of it in a commercial gym. All of my leg days take place at home, and I have all of the weight necessary for that. I have like 700 or 800 pounds of plates, which is more than enough, and I have my rack. I really like what I've done here. I really organized something pretty comfy and neat. At the end of the room, you can see my display where I have my rings. I'm now doing a lot of ring push-ups, which I'll show when I start recording in that room, with, of course, my lifting shoes. I love wrestling shoes for lifting. I find that they're the best, and also Olympic weightlifting shoes for my squats. Then on the side, you have the new addition to the gym, which is this little platform thing that I used to do deficit squats, quote unquote, so heel elevated squats. And this thing can go really high. The incline can get real crazy. It has 4 settings, and it stretches my quads like nothing else. So less weights, for more stimulus. Then we have the SSB bar. That is my betrothed at this point. I'm in love with this thing. I use it so much that I don't even rack it anymore. And then we have the preacher curl station. I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. I'm a curl bro. All curl bros need the preacher station. For bicep isolation, it is a must. Then we return to the schmuck wearing a yellow shorts, and back to the plate. So I have mirrors on the side for luminosity. Then I have my baby plates on the side of the room who are collecting dust. These are 5-pounders and 2.5-pounders. I picked them up. There's plenty of spiders in there. There used to be rats in the previous gym. Now it's spiders. I moved on from mammals to what we call arachnids. I like spiders better, in my opinion, because at least they hunt the bugs. The rats did nothing but just freeload. They didn't even pay rent. Then we have the rack in itself. So the rack is attached with these handoffs thingies that allow me to bench if I want to. Although I've quit benching, this is a story for another day, and I have these plates that hold the thing together because I cannot actually drill the rack in place, and if I'm going to squat like 400 pounds, I don't want it to fall on me. Then we have my bands, resistance bands, I use for recovery stuff, for tricep extensions, for the tendonitis, and then the camera is moving again because the cameraman is not taking his time. So here I'm filming all of my clamps that I use for the bar, bullshit I wrap around my elbows to get the pain away if needed, but I haven't done that in a long time. Towels if I need to use towels for grip stuff. Then we have my dumbbells. So there are the big and the small ones. The small ones are 10 pounds, the big ones are 15 pounds. I use for isolation, of course. And if we zoom in, we see pink, which is questionable, but remember, I am French, and the French go either way. So I really love pink personally. So my gym straps are pink. I actually take these to the commercial gyms and I get crazy looks. It's so funny. And this is something that I use for forearm isolation. It's an arm wrestling attachment. You wrap around your hand in this fashion so that way you're not limited by the strength of your fingers or your grip because there's no need for grip. The thing literally rests on your wrist so you can really focus on forearm isolation. And talking about isolation, these are cuffs. These are wrist cuffs that I use for lateral raises and I use for tricep extensions, and oh boy, do they help, because that way you're never limited by anything but the target muscle. The target muscle always goes to failure. I highly recommend you buy these. Then we have the wrist rotor for forearm isolation, likewise for wrist extension, for wrist flexion. Beautiful, beautiful thing to own if you have a home gym. A must buy if you want bigger forearms, in my opinion. It also really helps with elbow pain. Then we have my hyperextension bench that I bargained for 180. It was 5 years ago. It's a great piece of equipment for hamstring isolation, for glute development, to bulletproof your lower back. Then there's a bench, rogue bench, the fat pad, very comfortable. Even if you have narrow shoulders like me, you always want a lot of space for your back. You do not want to have to work towards stability. You want something that is going to allow you to feel like you're resting in bed. Then there's a piece of paper. What is the piece of paper? Is the piece of paper containing some French ingredients that allow me to be this big? No, it's just all of my movements. So if you look here, every single movement I do in this gym, the home gym, is listed here with the weight, because when you do so many soft variations, sometimes you forget which weights you're using. So here you can see for easy bar curls, I use 140. For the fat grip stuff, 55 pounds. For the pinwheel curls, 50 pounds. High bar squats, I'm actually, some movements you'll see here, I'm not doing anymore. So deadlifts, for example, I don't know how much I can deadlift now, because I haven't done it in like 6 or 7 months. Same for the bench press. I do dips and push-ups now, so I don't know how much I bench, although I don't really care at all. But some of these weights are a bit goofy. So you see SSB 265 for calves. For some reason, I'm strong on that, or I don't even know if it's strong at all. It's just that calves, for some reason, are much stronger than I thought they would be. Then we move on to the belt squat. So this is the new addition to the gym, and I'm so glad I bought it. It was very expensive, like $1,000, but it's worth every penny. I do 4 movements on it: squats, rows, like I showed you in this video, Romanian deadlifts. It's fucking insane with a single leg, and I also do shrugs. And shrugs on the belt squat machine beat any shrugs you've ever done in your life. They feel tremendous. So if you have the space and if you have the income for it, get this machine. It will last a million years. It will last longer than you. It will outlast me. Then we have backpacks. So the blue backpack is what I use for my push-ups. I can put like 200 pounds in there. It's that big of a backpack. And the black backpack is for inverted ring rows. It can hold like 100 pounds. So these are heavy duty. And then I have a chain that I actually use with the, whatever the name of this thing is in reality, like the thingy you put around your waist to be able to use the belt squat. Well, I use that thing to do weighted pull-ups. So, and it's really great. It holds on my hips. I really like it. So that's that. Then I don't know. Oh yeah, and then there's the neck harness. So for years, I refused to buy one because they were too expensive, and I can tell you for a fact, it was stupid. Pay the price. A neck harness is so effective for neck isolation. Once you try it once, you will never go back to doing neck curls with the plates on your forehead again, because it really is subpar. Here, you can truly target the muscles of the neck and feel them going to failure. Then we go right back to the loser holding the camera, who is for some reason filming a mirror. What are you doing, buddy? Oh, I was wanting to give you a nice overview of the gym, yes. So here's what the gym looks like. It's very pretty. I like the black and white aesthetics. Of course, the platform underneath I built myself. Don't be a fucking sucker. Rogue sells these platforms that are like half the size for $1,000. Bro, you go to Home Depot, you can make them for $100. Make them yourself. Then there's the Easy Bar Curl here. And then if you actually open the closet, we're coming out of the closet with this video, guys. What do you find? You find the lightsaber. You find of course, you find my swords, my 2 barbells that I put there because they don't go anywhere else. Because they're literally taller than the fucking ceiling. So I have to put them in there with the spiders. And that's actually very nice because that way they don't get humid, they don't rust. So yeah, that's pretty much that for this video, guys. This was the gym tour. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to support this channel, you can do so on my Ko-fi page. You can pledge, you can donate. In reality, anything is appreciated and allows me to keep putting a lot of energy and passion in these videos. If everything goes well, the next Hypertrophy Log will be taking place in the new gym. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.